Yeah, my brother. Another untold story don show again. Another untold story don show again. Make una watch. Na now una go understand how man and woman, Adam and Eve use come out. The way Bible talk am no be the way it is. Make una watch. Una go know say see how God use create Adam and Eve, no be the way they write am for Bible. Abeg, if you never subscribe for dis channel, subscribe because dis channel na to teach you many things wey you no know and many things wey dem no tell us. I dey here to teach una. So many untold stories don dey come out and I believe to dey post for una make una dey watch. Do you understand? Abeg subscribe and watch dis my video with understanding so dat you go dey understand things and things wey dem no tell you, our mama and our papa go tell us.
Ethiopian Bible reveals the true story of Adam and Eve. Did you know there's an ancient version of the Bible that contains stories most of the world has never heard? A version where the story of Adam and Eve is told in a completely different way, where Eve is not created from Adam's rib but from divine light itself? I'm talking about the Ethiopian Bible, one of the greatest mysteries in the history of religious studies, discovered in ancient monasteries on the Ethiopian islands. These books have upended our understanding of human origins. The Ethiopian Bible was written about 2,500 years ago in an ancient language called Ge'ez. To put it in perspective, this was a time when ancient Rome still existed. What's remarkable is that it contains 81 books, significantly more than the 66 books in the Protestant Bible or the 73 books in the Catholic Bible. Among these additional books are texts like the Book of Enoch and the Book of Jubilees, which were thought to have been lost for millennia. One particularly fascinating aspect is how the Ethiopian Bible describes the Garden of Eden. In the most important book of ancient Ethiopia, called the Book of Kings, it is said the Garden of Eden was not just an earthly garden, but a place where heaven and earth intersected, where divine light flowed down like rivers of crystal. This description is entirely different from the familiar image of a simple garden in Genesis. But why are these differences so important? They are not just different details in the same story. Each difference carries profound implications about how ancient people understood their origins, their relationship with the Creator, and the nature of sin. In this video, we will delve into three main aspects. First, how the Ethiopian Bible describes the creation of Adam and Eve. Second, the unique revelations about the Garden of Eden and the fall of man. And finally, we will discuss the deep lessons these differences offer us today. This journey of discovery is not just a lesson in history or religion. It is a story about how an ancient text from the distant land of Ethiopia can change the way we see ourselves and our place in the universe. Let's begin the journey to uncover these secrets buried for millennia. According to the Ethiopian Bible, the first human was created not from ordinary dust, but from a special kind of earth gathered from the four corners of the universe. This is just one of the many astonishing revelations this ancient version of the Bible offers about the origins of humanity. In the book of Kinfas 3:12-15, it is described in detail how the Creator sent angels to the four corners of the universe: the east where the sun rises, the west where the sunset glows, the north of ice, and the south of warmth. From each place they brought back a portion of sacred earth, moistened with the dew of heaven and purified by the light of the stars. This shows the meticulous preparation in creating the first human, far different from the simple description in Genesis. But what truly amazes me is the process of breathing life into Adam. The book of Kaifala, chapter 2, chapter 23-27 writes that when Adam's form was complete, the Creator did not just give the ordinary breath of life. Instead, he placed within Adam a divine spark, a piece of his own spirit. This spark shone in Adam's eyes, making them as clear as crystal, able to see even the invisible. Another unique detail is found in the book of Enoch 12:4-8. And when Adam opened his eyes for the first time, the light from his eyes was so strong that it illuminated the entire garden. The angels had to shield their eyes from this light, for it bore the same nature as the divine light of the Creator. These details are not just flowery descriptions. They reflect a profound concept of the divine nature within humans. The fact that Adam was created from the earth of all four corners of the universe suggests that humans are holistic beings, embodying the balance of opposing elements in nature. Particularly, the book of Cast 3:28-30 also reveals that the Creator taught Adam the language of the angels so he could understand the secrets of the universe. Adam was given the ability to name all things according to their true nature, for in his eyes was the light of divine understanding. This suggests that the first human language was not merely a system of symbols, but a powerful tool to understand and interact with the deep nature of all things. Perhaps this is the origin of the ancient belief in the power of words and spells in many cultures. While the story of Adam is already astonishing, the revelations about Eve are even more startling to researchers. You might be surprised to learn that Eve was not created from Adam's rib. Instead, the Book of Quran Nagast 4:8-12 describes that while Adam was in a deep sleep, the Creator took the purest light from the morning stars, crystallizing it into the form of Eve. Her body radiated a gentle light like the moon, and her soul contained the wisdom of the angels. This presents a completely new perspective on gender equality in the creation story. The Book of Qual 3:4-7 further emphasizes that Eve was not a part of Adam, but an independent creation, bearing her own divine light. She was given the ability to see things Adam could not see and understand things Adam could not understand. A particularly interesting aspect is the initial relationship between Adam and Eve with the Creator. The Book of Enoch chapter 15:8-1 writes that every morning when the dew was still on the grass, they could hear the footsteps of the Creator in the garden. His voice was like melodious music, and the light from his presence made the entire garden glow as if gilded. The way the Ethiopian Bible describes the special abilities of this first couple is even more astonishing. In the Book of Konas 5:15-18, it records that Adam and Eve could see the invisible, hear the voices of angels, and understand the language of all creatures. They could see both the past and the future, for in their eyes was the light of divine wisdom. However, with these extraordinary abilities also came great responsibilities. The Book of Kufa 3:20-23 warns that with greater power comes greater responsibility. Adam and Eve were given the freedom to choose, but they also had to bear the consequences of those choices. This was the first covenant between the Creator and humanity. This leads us to the important question. If Adam and Eve were created so perfectly, what led to their fall, and why were these extraordinary abilities lost? The answer lies in the story of the Garden of Eden and the temptation, a story that in the Ethiopian Bible has shocking details that we will explore in the next section. According to the Ethiopian Bible, the Garden of Eden was not just a garden on earth, but a special space between the material and spiritual worlds. This is one of the astonishing revelations about humanity's first paradise. In the Book of Kinfast 6:1-5, it is described that the Garden of Eden was set on a high mountain where the earth touched heaven. 4 crystal rivers flowed from the mountain's peak, carrying divine light instead of ordinary water. The air in the garden contained the essence of eternal life, and every breath in the garden brought wisdom. What's interesting is how the Ethiopian Bible describes the initial relationship between humans and the Creator. The Book of Kaifal 4:8-12 writes that every sunset when the twilight bathed the garden in gold, the Creator would appear in the form of pure light. Adam and Eve could directly converse with him, learning the secrets of the universe and understanding the language of all creatures. But perhaps the most surprising thing is the rules and limits in the Garden of Eden. The Ethiopian Book of Enoch 16:15-9 reveals that in the garden there were 3 sacred trees: the tree of life that granted immortality, the tree of knowledge that allowed understanding of all things, and the tree of light, the source of all divine energy. Adam and Eve were allowed to eat from the tree of life and the tree of light, but were forbidden to approach the tree of knowledge until they achieved full spiritual maturity. This shows a profound perspective on human spiritual development, unlike the usual version that simply forbids eating the forbidden fruit. Here we see a step-by-step development plan for humanity. Particularly impressive is how the Book of Cobra Nagast 7:3-7 describes the space in the garden. The ground in the garden was as clear as crystal, reflecting heavenly light. The flowers not only emitted fragrance, but also produced angelic music when the wind blew through. Every creature in the garden shone with its own light, creating a symphony of light and sound. But what truly shocks is how the Ethiopian Bible describes the process of temptation. Unlike the familiar image of a simple snake, the Book of Kufa, chapter 5, verses 1-5, reveals that the tempter appeared in the form of a being of light, similar to the angels. It did not just speak with words, but could create illusions of the future and promises of unlimited power. Particularly interesting is how Eve was tempted. In the Book of Kinfast 8, verses 12-16, it is described that the tempter did not promise Eve knowledge, but the ability to create light and life, like the Creator himself. It showed Eve visions of a world she could create, where she could determine the laws of nature. A shocking detail is found in the Ethiopian book of Enoch chapter 17, 8-1. When Eve gave the forbidden fruit to Adam, their crystal clear eyes began to dim. The divine light within them gradually faded, and for the first time, they felt darkness, not just outside but within their own souls. This shows a deep understanding of the nature of sin. It is not about breaking a simple rule, but about gradually losing the divine qualities inherent in oneself. The Book of Kinfast, 9:1-4, concludes that when the Creator appeared in the garden that afternoon, for the first time, Adam and Eve could not look directly at his light. Not because he had changed, but because they had lost the ability to see the divine. These revelations are not just interesting additional details to the story we know. They provide a completely new perspective on the nature of sin and the fall, not as a simple act of disobedience, but as a process of abandoning one's divine nature for personal ambition. This leads us to the important question: if humans were originally created with such extraordinary abilities, can we restore what was lost? The answer to this question lies in the next section, where we will explore the consequences of the fall and the path to redemption. Have you ever wondered why in most cultures humans always feel like incomplete beings, as if they've lost something important? The Ethiopian Bible provides an astonishing explanation for this feeling. In the Book of Kebron, Ast 10:1-5, it is described that the first consequence of the fall, when the divine light left Adam and Eve, not only did their bodies become heavy and dark, but the entire nature around them changed. The flowers stopped producing angelic music, the ground was no longer as clear as crystal, and the language of all creatures became foreign to them. What truly shocks is how the Book of Kaifal 6:8-12 describes the cosmic impact. The fall of Adam and Eve created a crack in the fabric of reality. The heavenly light could no longer freely flow down to earth. The 4 crystal rivers of the Garden of Eden gradually turned into ordinary water, and the distance between heaven and earth began to widen. This is a profound explanation of why the world we live in seems to be missing something. It is not just a moral or spiritual issue, but a fundamental change in the very structure of reality. The Ethiopian Book of Enoch 18:15-9 reveals further that before the fall, Adam and Eve could see both the past and the future, understand the language of the angels, and feel the presence of the Creator in every breath. After the fall, they could only see the material world, and the memory of the lost abilities became a persistent pain in their souls. A particularly impressive detail is found in the Book of Ast 11:3-7. When Adam and Eve looked at each other after the fall, for the first time, they could not see each other's souls. Instead, they only saw the outer skin. This is why the text says they realized they were naked, not physically but the nakedness of the soul, when no longer enveloped by divine light. But perhaps the most important lesson the Ethiopian Bible teaches us about the fall is the lesson of freedom and responsibility. In the Book of Kuale 7:1-4, it writes that the freedom to choose is the most divine gift the Creator gave to Adam and Eve, but it is also the greatest test. Every choice not only affects themselves but also impacts the entire fabric of reality. What is surprising is how the Ethiopian Bible views the possibility of redemption. The Ethiopian Book of Enoch 19:8-2 reveals that although the divine light has dimmed, it has never completely extinguished in humans. In every soul there remains a small spark, a seed of the original divine potential. This is the basis for the hope of redemption. The Book of Khan, Ost 12:5-9, goes further by describing the Creator's mercy. It is not about erasing the consequences of the fall, but about giving humans the opportunity to gradually restore what was lost. Every act of kindness, every moment of deep understanding, brightens a little of the remaining divine spark in the soul. This is an incredibly hopeful and practical message. It suggests that redemption is not a sudden event, but a long process of restoration and reconnection with one's divine nature. The Book of Kuale 8:15-18 concludes that the path back to divine light is not a journey back in time to return to the Garden of Eden, but a journey towards a higher state of consciousness where humans can maintain the freedom to choose while living in harmony with divine intent. These insights from the Ethiopian Bible are not just explanations of a distant past. They provide a framework for understanding the current state of humanity and the path forward. Perhaps by understanding better what we have lost, we can begin the journey to restore our inherent divine abilities. This leads us to the next section, where we will compare these unique insights with other religious traditions and explore their significance in the modern world. Let's start with a comparison with the Hebrew Bible. In Genesis 2:7, it says that the Lord God formed man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being. But in the book of Kebron-Nis 3, verses 12 to 15, it describes that the Creator gathered earth from the four corners of the universe, each part bearing a different divine quality, and breathed into it not just life, but a spark of his own divine essence. This difference is not just a minor detail, it reflects a completely different view of human nature. While the Hebrew Bible emphasizes the earthly aspect of humans, the Ethiopian Bible asserts that humans inherently bear a divine nature from the beginning. Another interesting point of comparison is about Eve. In the book of Kuali 4:8-2, it writes that Eve was created from pure light, not from Adam's rib. She bore her own source of light, independent of Adam. This starkly contrasts with the description in Genesis 2:21-22 about Eve being created from Adam's rib. The Ethiopian Bible's interpretation of the role of women is much more progressive than its time. It suggests an original equality between men and women, an idea that remains controversial even in the modern world. Particularly impressive is how the Ethiopian Book of Enoch 25-9 describes the relationship between humans and nature. Before the fall, Adam and Eve could understand the language of every creature, from the smallest ant to the stars in the sky. They were not masters of nature but guardians and interpreters of the voice of all things. When applying these insights to the modern world, we see remarkable similarities. The Book of Kinfast 13:8-2 warns that when humans lose the ability to understand the language of nature, they begin to see nature as a tool to exploit, rather than a part of themselves. Does this not accurately reflect the environmental crisis we are facing today? Another detail found in the book of Kuala 9:15-9 says that the fall is not just about eating the forbidden fruit, but about humans wanting to control and determine the laws of nature instead of living in harmony with them. In the age of AR, artificial intelligence, and biotechnology, this warning seems more relevant than ever. Particularly interesting is how the Ethiopian Book of Enoch 21:3-7 talks about restoration. The path back to divine light is not about abandoning knowledge, but about learning to use it with humility and respect for the divine order. This suggests a balanced approach between technological development and maintaining spiritual values. These ancient teachings provide a valuable framework for addressing modern challenges. They remind us that true progress is not just about technology or knowledge, but about developing the wisdom to use them responsibly. The Book of Kanagast 14:1-4 concludes that each generation must face its own challenge in balancing knowledge and wisdom, progress and preservation, individual freedom, and responsibility to the whole. This is perhaps the most important message the Ethiopian Bible can bring to our modern world. These insights lead us to the final part of the journey, where we will summarize the most important values and lessons this ancient text offers humanity in the 21st century. First, let's look at the unique research value of these texts. The Book of Konas, the final chapter, verses 1-5, asserts that these words are not just the heritage of one people, but the treasure of wisdom for all humanity. They contain not only history, but also deep insights into the nature of reality and human potential. From an academic perspective, the Ethiopian Bible provides a valuable window into the worldview of ancient civilizations. The Book of Kuala, the final chapter, verses 8-12, records that each generation must read these words with new eyes, for they contain different layers of meanings, suitable for each era. Culturally and historically, these texts are particularly important because they offer a different perspective on familiar stories. In the Book of Enoch, the final chapter, verses 15-19, it writes that truth is not a single story, but a synthesis of many different perspectives. Only by looking from many angles can we understand the whole picture. For the modern world, I see three particularly important lessons from the Ethiopian Bible. First, about the relationship between humans and nature. The Book of Kinfast 15:3-7 teaches that humans are not the masters of nature but the guardians and interpreters of the voice of all things. When we lose the ability to listen to nature, we also lose a part of our divine nature. Second, about gender equality. The way the Ethiopian Bible describes Eve being created from light, equal to Adam, provides a spiritual foundation for gender equality, a topic still hotly debated in modern society. Third, about responsibility with knowledge and power. The Book of Kuala, the final chapter, 2024, warns that knowledge is not for domination, but for service. Power is not for imposition, but for protection and nurturing.